I simply purchased 2 of James Cone's books and read them. Marked in Kindle the quotations and read them out. Then, last year? I did it again. I think when he died. So last year, when he died, Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary had some podcasts talking about him. And I went back through and I read whole sections of James Cone. It's all you have to do. Well, in the midst of all this, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it was. It was a Thad or a Chad. I'm sorry if I don't remember. Someone posted a graphic, a picture from a paper book. And I really struggled to read it. It was very hard for me to read. The print was very small. Couldn't blow the graphic up properly on the screen. But I read it and I was blown away. And so they did mention what book it was from, which I did not have. So I bought it. By the way, if you buy this book, God of the Oppressed, and if you buy the Kindle version, it is horribly done. Someone just did not care and just threw a PDF in there, and there's errors all over the place and font differences. It just was not edited. No one, but that's what I had to do. Anyway, and so since I had the picture version, and now I had the electronic version, but it wouldn't let me copy from it, at least I was able to type out the section from the book that someone had posted. This is not from somewhere in the middle of the book. This is the conclusion of the book. So this is his final statement. Now, why am I reading this? It's real simple, folks. I mentioned this briefly before. What explains the black racism that we've seen? What explains the fact that Christians can so quickly embrace critical theory and intersectionality and start thinking this way, which is so opposed to the apostolic message and is so divisive and is so destructive? How is this happening? They're not running around reading James Cone. So how are they imbibing this? Because it has been the very milk of what has been taught in liberal leftist seminaries, and now it's coming into our seminaries too. And so as it moves out into the ministers, white and black, then it becomes a part of the narrative. It becomes a part of the sermons. It becomes a part of the interpretation of the text itself. And so it's absorbed over time. They don't have to read Cone. Cone's racism is still alive and well, mediated through that mechanism. So let me read what was posted. Like I said, I bought the book, double-checked it. This is the conclusion of the book. The God of the Oppressed. When whites undergo the true experience of conversion, wherein they die to whiteness and are reborn anew in order to struggle against white oppression and for the liberation of the oppressed, there is a place for them in the black struggle of freedom. Here, reconciliation becomes God's gift of blackness through the oppressed of the land. But it must be made absolutely clear that it is the black community that decides both the authenticity of white conversion and also the part these converts will play in the black struggle of freedom. The converts can have nothing to say about the validity of their conversion experience or what is best for the community or their place in it, except as permitted by the oppressed community itself. As is true of every member of the black community, Accountability remains an essential ingredient of all who share in the struggle of freedom. But white converts, if there are any to be found, must be made to realize that they're like babies who have barely learned how to walk and talk. Thus, they must be told when to speak and what to say. Otherwise, they will be excluded from our struggle. What is always ruled out is white converts using their experience in our community as evidence against blacks, claiming that reconciliation with whites is possible. Unless whites can get every single black person to agree that reconciliation is realized, there is no place whatsoever for white rhetoric about the reconciling love of blacks and whites. For if whites are truly converted to our struggle, they know that reconciliation is a gift that excludes boasting. It is God's gift of blackness, made possible through the presence of the divine in the social context of black existence. With the gift comes a radical change in lifestyle, wherein one's value system is now defined by the oppressed engaged in the liberation struggle. Black people must be aware of the extreme dangers of speaking too lightly of reconciliation with whites. Just because we work with them, and sometimes worship alongside them, should be no reason to claim that they are truly Christians, and thus a part of our struggle. Every mistake we make regarding white integrity will lead to the further entrenchment of our oppression by white people. End quote. Dr. James Cone, The God of the Oppressed, page 222, if you want to look it up. Now, most people, when they hear that, they don't even have a category to put it in. They don't have a category to put it in. But do you remember when Donald Trump was elected president? November of 2016. That was Tuesday. So Wednesday, Thursday of that next week, I'm pretty certain it was Jamar Tisby who had a discussion online about what? Do you remember? Our memories are short. About how he was afraid to worship with white people on the coming Sunday. Just because we work with them and sometimes worship alongside them should be no reason to claim that they are truly Christians and thus a part of our struggle. Now, do I really need to lay out the fact that James Cone was not a Christian? That from any historical, creedal standpoint, James Cone makes the Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Muslims together look orthodox? That he defines Christianity as the struggle against oppression? That the gift of God and reconciliation is blackness? This is heresy in its fullest form. And yet, in our seminaries, you have James Cone being studied. Not as an example of what our theology should be, but for what we can learn from him. Folks, if you can't find enough orthodox black writers to learn from that you got to use James Cone, you have not done your research. I can see reading James Cone in seminary. I read a lot of heresy in seminary. I really did. But I knew it was heresy. And I treated it as heresy. And I wasn't looking for insights from it. You need to understand, that oppression and the oppressed, that is the definitional essence of critical theory, which was identified as an appropriate tool of analysis by Resolution 9 of the Southern Baptist Convention. What can I say? What can I say? Isn't it obvious? You say that's just so extreme. Yes, it is extreme. But that explains all the garbage from Jasmine Wilson. That explains why Keisha Atkinson on Facebook wrote, "He's just gross." This is in regard, just as a tweet. Had zero business posting this. Thankfully, he is canceled. Him and his whole crew. Totally obsessed with black people and hardly building us up. And tell me how this isn't racist. Bye. The comments on that particular Facebook post were, well, the only term is vile. Profane, profanity. These are supposed to be Christians. Well, not all of them, I guess, obviously. She later posted slandered, utterly fallacious lies about me. And what would motivate something like this? You think there might be a connection through teachers and preachers over time from James Cone down to Keisha Atkinson? Because I doubt she's read him. Maybe she has. I don't know. Maybe she thinks that's great stuff. I don't know. But in all probability, it's a mediated thing. And what that allows then is when you read James Cone, you are given an intellectual foundation for being a black racist against whites. I don't know how you could read Cone and not come away with an absolute attitude of despising whites, because it's plain that he did. This is what we have to deal with in the church today. There was a fellow by the name of Christian Moscoso. And he identified me as his brother, thankfully. He says, I have no problem understanding the centrality of sin in the abortion debate. My concern is with your tone and your disregard for fellow believers and the way you engage the debate. You don't owe me an explanation. All I'm doing as your brother is asking you to consider whether the way you write and engage in debate reflects the love of Christ. I appreciate at least he didn't automatically kick me out of the kingdom.